Hello and welcome to URSEAT. This is a new podcast about American innovation and early stage investing. I'm your host, Tiana Laurence.
So this week at URSEAT, we're going to review a seed stage company's pitch deck. We're going to get a first impression of what we think, see if we can understand the problem that they're trying to solve, see if they have a solution that we think will fit within the market. Then we'll interview the founder and get an idea of what kind of person he is and how is he invested into this company himself. And then we'll call in an expert and get their opinion as well on market conditions and if they have any ideas about what they are going to be investing in the near future. So I hope you enjoy this segment, and I would love to get as much feedback from you guys as possible as we move forward. Looking forward to this.
Listing Village, tools to empower realtors. Cool. Being a successful realtor is hard. That's true. Everyone is paying the price. Interesting. Listing Village makes it easy. Okay. Compliance with NAR and MLS, good. Automated advertising, cool. One platform to manage website, CRM marketing. Independent of brokers software. Product market fit, 800 paying customers. That's great. 96% retention. Awesome. Revenue. Yeah, revenue is awesome. Getting close to 250. They make money through reoccurring revenue, social ads. That's great. I think Zillow does almost $1 billion. Central portal. So they kind of give them a platform to do everything. Content creator. They got some customer testimonials. That's great. And the team. Small and agile.
Now that I have a good understanding of what Listing Village has to offer, I think that they're pretty great. And I think it's worth taking a few minutes to talk to the founder and do a deeper dive. Who is he as a person? Why did he fund this company? What are his hopes and dreams if he's successful? What are the things that he's worried about? What kind of things does he need to be successful? So that's what we're going to do next. Is we're going to jump on the phone with the founder and hear what he has to say.
We're getting down here. My name is Matt Young. I'm the CEO of Listing Village, which we are building tools to empower realtors. So I think we talked about this briefly, but being a real estate agent is really difficult. We've talked about how they've got these gigantic trade unions that basically are providing this massive barrier of entry for them. Marketing is ridiculously expensive, especially if you've just got in, you've got all these expenses, you can't afford to pay Zillow for leads. You've got to somehow figure out how to generate a network and business. You've got a lot of different technology to try to manage. It's very much shattered in a million different things you have to use for your closing systems and your advertising stuff. And you've got to learn Facebook and Google and all these different things you've got to deal with. And up until now, most software has been either designed as a portal like Zillow or a brokerage tool, which, as we talked about, we want to make sure the agents are able to leave the broker if they want to. And so these brokerage tools and these portals are trying to trap these agents in. And there's also a lack of a way to manage off-market properties. So as I say, if you go to list your house, there's certain rules because of these trade unions that require you to list under certain conditions. And this is kind of one of those things I said that's left over from the early 1900s of listing a home. And this still hasn't been fixed. There's still a lot of people out there that are willing to list their house, but just don't want to deal with multi-list at the time, or they're holding off. And so there's this backlog of inventory we think is available. And that is making housing more expensive for everyone. It's slowing down the number of deals that are done, and it's limiting the number of houses on the market. So we are going to make that easier. We're compliant with the National Associations of Realtors and the local multi-lists. But we enable agents to get more use outside of those organizations. We have automated advertising. There's no reason a real estate agent should have to figure out how to advertise on Facebook and deal with pixels and build audience data and Google Analytics and all this stuff. They don't have to do that. They shouldn't have to.
How old is who's your target customer anyways? What's the average real estate agent?
We found a lot of success, especially in these mid markets right now, in between these areas that are being heavily targeted. So like areas that have home sales around 400,000, 200 to 400,000, kind of like those areas right outside of Austin, not necessarily in the city limits, the luxury areas. Agents that have been overlooked. They don't have a lot of money to spend on advertising, but they have an open house, they have a new listing, but they don't have the time or money to hire a social media manager or learn the system themselves.
Okay, great.
And yeah, and so we're bringing everything under one platform, and that platform is portable, right? So their client relation management stuff, their websites, their marketing. If they ever create a Facebook post and they want to push it back to their website, if they leave their broker, they don't have to worry about losing that information. So we created it all in one package. And like I said, it's independent of the brokerage's software. And that was something we were talking about earlier. If brokers are inefficient, charging desk fees and high commission cuts and other whatever fees that they're having to take out of the agent, this kind of software enables that agent to move to another broker that's low cost, no cost. And we've seen a lot of those. And that's one of our other very successful areas, is coming in and finding these brokerages that do like no commission or as low as like 10% commission. We provide all the software tools for their agents and let them have a great culture and understanding of the neighborhood. And we're also working on what we call the off-market listing tools. So like I said earlier, there's this backlog of inventory of people who would sell but aren't just quite ready to sell. And we think it's ridiculous that you can't at least shop that home around, or that there may be a home available in this area. So we're creating these networks between agents to go, hey, I've got somebody that's looking to move, but they're waiting until a home opens in this area, and then kind of connecting those networks of buyers and sellers that these agents know about, but up until now have been just sharing an email list and Facebook groups.
Got it.
So we believe we hit product market fit. We've got unbelievably good retention, and all these clients have been gained through word of mouth. So that's one thing we really pride ourselves on. One of the things we've noticed, and especially a strategy going forward, is this kind of influencer effect, where agents will check on what other agents are using, and as soon as they're advertising, other tools kick in, they go, oh, Karen's using that, I mean, it's good enough for me too. And that's how we've kind of built this system out so far, is just building a great product and then getting referrals through what we call the realtors spying on each other. So we've got a revenue model that is ready to grow. The great thing about the system that we designed years ago is we were able to create a new real estate agent website in under 20 minutes without interacting with them. This means that it's totally scalable. We talked about in the past where it's like these other systems are set up where they literally have to set up a new website and they spin up a new web server and they do all. This is like a single code base that basically allows us to scale like a Wix or a Squarespace. I don't have to interact with my clients. They get HTTPS sites, domain registration, all that stuff is done for them. And we spent a lot of time developing that kind of system because we realize real estate agents are super busy and they just need to be able to click through, set a site up, pick a domain, and then just start sharing content.
Yeah, they shouldn't be working on their web development skills. They should be meeting people because people buy houses.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be what their, unique skill is.
I have to tell them it's like, you take care of what you do best, right? Which is building networks, providing client services, and connecting them with the right people as they go through the home buying process, whether it be title companies, lenders, lawn care companies in the end. Let me be your tech geek, and we'll handle all that stuff in the back end and automate it. Okay. Which brings me, by the way, to how we make money. So we've kind of staged. Yeah. We've staged this thing out. You don't do everything all at once. And the idea is you want to get the stickiest part of the product in there first, prove that it's worth to the agent to pay for. So we start out with the agent platform. And for the branded version of it, it's $30 a month. We've got a premium version, which we charge $99 a month for. So, and it scales up from there on top of ads. And that's what we talk about here with the social media ads is we've released this and we've been testing it. And we take 30% of their ad spend. So they have an open house. We advise they spend $50. We take a 30% cut, and then we fire that ad off automatically for them to Facebook, Google, and Instagram. And they don't have to worry about that. They don't have to go into Facebook Ad Manager. They don't have to deal with Google Analytics. We know the best audience for this open house. We'll create that audience for you and fire that off for you. And then we send back the results of that, and we make it easy for them to track it, go to the Facebook post, like it, share it, comment it, and then see the results in the end.
Nice. Okay.
So this is where we really get into what we think is the larger chunk of money in the future, which is the services referral program. And I've mentioned this a couple times, but realtors are like this in-person network effect. If they're doing their job right, they've connected a home buyer or seller with a million services, right? Home repair. Like, how many people are like, they go to an agent and they're like, who's the best guy right now for a handyman for my bathroom, right?
Yep.
There are so many services out there that want to get in front of real estate agents. So if we can become sticky and profitable, selling the agents this $30 a month platform, helping them with their advertisement, we can then start to bring in other services like moving companies. I have a moving company we talked to, and they're like, listen, I've got a 100% close rate on every lead an agent sends me. I will pay you, $100 every time an agent sends me somebody. I've got another company that does basically 3D renderings of home renovations for like a kitchen. They pay $350 for every single referral. So we think there's a massive potential for money for the agents and us outside the traditional commission system. And this is the kind of thing where I'm talking about changing the market, finding new ways to make money, right? A lot of people complain about real estate agent commissions, right? This is another way for real estate agents to maybe decrease the commissions, but find other ways to monetize themselves and even make more money in between the transactions, because most people don't buy a house but every 10 years. So in between that time period when somebody's not shopping for the home, that real estate agent gets to be that hyper local expert and then monetize those referrals they're generating.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the churn on a house is like, maybe when people are younger, it's probably what, 3 to 5 years. And then as they get older, they keep the house longer. But yeah, I remember when I bought my first house, the agent had created a little book that had all the different secondary services that I'd need, the electrician, the plumber, all the different things, because like that was my first home, and it's a lot of work to go from renting to owning. It can be quite overwhelming. So having something that supports that, especially in a more modern way, like it was great having that little book, but the reality is that it wasn't up to date, right? So
yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. That's what I keep talking back to about NAR and this 100+ year old system. They give you this book, they're giving these referrals out, but there's not even like a referral code or a link or some way to track this kind of thing. It's all so ridiculously unformalized. And for you, especially, you're getting a book. Like, why can't you get something where you have your own client page and then you click on the referral, it tracks a link, the home services, whatever, sends a check back to the agent going, hey, thanks for the referral, and then we take a cut. That's the way we do things. We have referral codes on our own system. Why don't agents have a system to monetize the referral network and track it? Because then they can also show value to those services. It's not just that, hey, Mary, I handed out your information to 20 people. It's like you can take that, put it in an email, use a tracking code, and then that person go, oh my God, look, that agent sent me 10 leads this month. I need to send her somebody that's looking for a house. That kind of stuff helps build networks. We know this for the longest time inside the software world, but for some reason, agents just, it hasn't caught on yet. And I really do think that goes back to the original thing where the software needs to be designed with the agent in mind, not a portal like Zillow, not a brokerage tool. It's got to be focused on the agent, because the agents are the ones that have those networks.
makes sense.
So finally, this comes from my background in development, and I've talked with a lot of people here in the Austin area, which is, by the way, one of the reasons I moved down here. There's so many people in real estate tech and so many great ideas for lead gen kind of tools or other real estate services. But the problem is it's the barrier of entry of getting that agent to try these things out. And so we started partnering, for example, with Koya, where inside our system, this company called Koya does gift cards for reminders and thank yous. So, hey, thanks for giving me the referral. It's sold the house. Here's a gift card. Well, what we can do for those services is we can provide a platform that integrates with their tools. So now you can, in our CRM, you can call, text, email, or Koya your contact. We can send them reminders going, hey, there's a home buyer anniversary. Would you like to send them the thank you dinner, Koya? And in the future, we're going to start working with other companies that do, for example, AI, social media posting, lead gen stuff like that. And for them, they get a built-in audience. They get to try out their tools, right? They don't have to, get the agent to sign up, get their credit card, all that kind of stuff. And basically, we build an app store. Our agents can go try out these different products, and we can provide information and direct payments back to those third-party app developers. Because I really don't want to just build another software system in a silo. And the long-term goal is to build, as I think you said earlier, a Shopify for real estate agents, where I can have other developers that have great ideas come in, use the system we've already built and test out new lead gen or other tools the agents might like.
Right, very good.
So talked about this before, client portals for the agents, because if you're not dealing directly through the brokerage, you're dealing with the agent, you can create client information. So for example, the future have something where after the client's going through the home buying process, they're being referred to different services as they're going through their checklist for documentation. They're going, hey, you probably need to call this moving company before this thing happens. Hey, this is a title company. Has this been checked off? So this allows the agent and the client to interact, because that's really what we're trying to do, is get away from the Zillow style meat market of real estate agents where there's 3 agents and they call 10 agents whenever you call in and whoever first grabs it. That's not the way either the agents like or normally the clients either. Yeah. So we want to try to work with that relationship inside the software system.
That's funny you said that. So I saw an advertisement for PitchBook. So PitchBook is sort of like the VC equivalent of what Zillow is in a lot of ways. Like they try to have every single money manager investment thing in their system, and the ad said spy on your competitors.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not giving, because PitchBook sends me emails all the time requesting me to update my portfolio information. I was like, I shouldn't do that, should I?
Yeah.
If they're going to sell it to people to compete with me, they don't have the best interest of their customers in mind.
And I've just told this from the real estate agent's perspective. That was really the start of this whole thing, was the fact that if you send your client to Zillow, Zillow's entire job is to destroy that relationship and sell you as a lead to another agent. That's how they make their money. One of our agents, she goes, I went to go see that It movie with the balloon, and it was 2 hours. 2 hours to turn off my phone. That was it. Just 2 hours. I walk back out. I look at my phone. Hey, Lisa, I was wanting to see this house on Zillow. Lisa, hey, Lisa, why can't I find you? Is there any information? It says it might be going off the market soon. Yeah, Lisa, I called this other agent. And she's like, I've known this lady for years. I took her out. I drove her around. We did showings together. I bought her lunch, and it was like this panic mode that Zillow has introduced, right, to try to get her to call another agent that disrupted that, relationship, right? And they're mad about that kind of stuff. So they want to be able to work directly with their clients and not have a third party constantly being in the middle of their relationship.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, if somebody is already that far into the relationship and they're disrupting it, that's a little cannibalistic, huh?
Yeah, and from the client side of things, we want accurate data. I can't tell you how many agents have told me about this, and they're like, why do you want your own map? Why don't you just use this other thing? Or why don't you embed Zillow? And they're like, Zillow has homes on it that have been off the market for weeks. Zillow will give me a call saying there's a client, I'll answer it, and I'll have to explain to that angry person that house is not available. And Zillow does that because those homes have usually good price, a great curb appeal, and they'd rather leave them on the market, sell the lead, and then create this hostile relationship between the agent and the client going, I just saw it on Zillow. And the agent's like, I'm sorry, it sold a week ago. I don't know what to tell you. And so part of this too is being able to curate proper information so you don't have disappointment and bad expectations set for the clients as well.
Yeah, I could see the economic incentive if just totally short-sighted, no empathy for anyone that's using that system.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, that was part of their thing too. They're trying to go in there and basically eliminate the agent. The agents know that, and they failed, and they lost $350 million plus trying to do it. So the celebrations in my Facebook feed with my agents was amazing, watching them pull all these markets and lose all this money. So they're looking for a solution for this, and they're not finding it. So that's what we're building, and as part of that, we've created content creators that basically allow them to automate, create content, automate, new listing posts, especially like a social media manager can come in here and basically do everything they do, or we can provide automation for that. And then finally, we have the agent network. And that's what I was talking about before, where the number of times I've gone into a private Facebook group and they're like, all right, guys, I'm looking for a 3-bedroom in this neighborhood with a swimming pool. And then some agent's like, oh, I think I got one here, or it's just crickets, right? And a lot of times these networks are split apart. So it's like different brokerages have different silos of Facebook groups or mailer groups or all these things. But there's all these agents that are like, hey guys, I got somebody to sell their house, but I need to have a motivated buyer. Does anybody have somebody that's looking for? And they're just spitting off emails into the void, hoping that some other agent that just happens to look at the one of 300 emails that came through today happens to go, oh yeah, I just talked to John and Michelle last week. They were looking for something in that area. This is part of the problem with NAR and the brokerage system, and the way it works is the agents have been basically cut off from each other, and they're desperately using archaic tools to try to communicate with each other. So we got a lot of happy customers. Like I said, our retention rate is 96% over the last 3.5 years now as we've been rolling out the product. Mary Kay Palmer is actually our first customer. The story with her is we had demoed this thing during one of the Little Rock Tech Park things. They're like, hey, Matt, you working on anything new? I'm like, oh, yeah, Jacob, my co-founder, he created a Zillow, on the weekends. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, check it out. So we showed him how I did this. A couple agents showed up. Mary Kay Palmer's like, I want that. I'm like, well, it's not, not really ready for prime time. We're just trying to see if we can rebuild it, And she goes, I'll pay you $6,000 to get this thing up and running next month. And I was like, okay, well, she'll pay $6,000. Everybody else will pay $20 a month. This is going to work. And sure enough, she's been on the system ever since then. And she's since sold her brokerage, and that brokerage is still one of our clients, and she's still an agent. So, I mean, it's remarkably sticky. And that's, like I said, my first customer is still with me, even after a couple of years of development and growing pains and all the other things that we've messed around with the system is, if you can get in there and establish a relationship with the agent and provide tremendous value, you then are locked in, and it's an unbelievably good business model.
That's great. Perfect.
So talking about some of these people we worked with before, when we were back in Arkansas, I called my friends, family around. This basically allowed us to exit the last company and build out the rest of the product. So Jacob was no longer just scrambling on nights and weekends. Moved down to Austin. We got the system built out, and that kind of automation stuff I talked about before, which is extremely important. You got to remember, most of my clients, whenever they get an agent that's like, yes, I'll do it, they go to their websites, go to Playster, go to Easy Agent Pro. They don't have an automated setup. You have to call somebody. And we were like, there's no way this is going to work at scale. And so we basically built out that entire system that automates domain creation. Early on, we found that agents got hung up on picking a domain name. So we built a little system that gives them, based on their information, 6 suggested domain names, and they just click on one. And so we kind of destroyed all those little, I call them walls of barriers of where they would get hung up. And they're like, oh, I don't know which domain name I want. We're like, no problem. We've scanned the domain registry. Here's 6 domain names that have your name and agent something or realtor something in there, and that would work for you, right? And they're like, yeah, click, and they go right through, registers domain, logs them in. And so all that kind of stuff that we found our agents were getting hung up on, that's what we've been working on fixing, because that's where you really get to scale this whole thing out.
Nice.
We've also recently, switched our legal paperwork over to Delaware C. So we're no longer in Arkansas LLC. So that should help out a lot, especially when investors are taking a look at us. But like I said, that 365, those are all people in or adjacent to the real estate industry that understood what we were doing. And that's why we got that investment from those fellow Arkansans that were so helpful in getting us off the ground.
That's awesome.
So our team is awesome and been working together forever. Carmen has been just unbelievably great for us. She came in when I was still running desk agent. She was doing video work for us and some other stuff. And she got a real estate license, basically to help us, to make sure she better understood the journey of an agent. Yeah. Well, at one point she goes, what, did she dig into this? And she goes and gets a license, and now she's working at a Red Door Realty and does their social media. And so she's using the product while helping clients with the product. So she's been outstanding in all of this. My background, like I said, my family's been around real estate forever. I've known about the background of the industry, the infighting, the weird stuff that happens. I know the culture. My background, I also had a lot of time programming development technology, so I understand the tech stack. I understand the problems my competition is going through, which I believe gives me a pretty clear advantage. And of course, Mr. Jacob Fry, who has been with me ever since he was an intern sophomore in college and has moved down to Austin here with me to work on this. This guy built a Zillow program in his spare time. So he's been absolutely outstanding.
Okay, so that was Listing Village. We've checked out their deck and it looks pretty solid. Software as a service, so that means that they have reoccurring revenue. They also have more than one stream of revenue. So not just do they have like a monthly recurring fee that they charge their customers, which is great, they also have a potential of doing upsells through selling advertisement and offering other microservices within their base price. So that's really lovely. What we need to discover next is how is the industry and the market now? The current economic conditions means interest rates are going up to like 6% or higher. And on the flip side, will there be fewer real estate agents in the future, therefore fewer customers? So that's kind of one of the pieces that we need to look at is what is the current sentiment and how are people reacting to the current state of the industry? Because even if it's the right team and the company is really solid, if the timing in the market's wrong, then it's just taking a pile of money and burning it. So that's what we have to discover. We'll make a few phone calls and see what people think. Now we're going to talk about PropTech. Thanks for taking the time.
Oh, you're welcome. I love talking about PropTech.
So you've built a successful company in the space, Deal Machine. You guys are
That's right.
nationwide. And my understanding is that it helps investors find properties faster and get into deals that are off market. Is that right?
Yeah. So you know how real estate investors, they need to find rundown houses to flip?
Mm-hmm.
So they can use our app to figure out which houses are run down and then get in touch with the owner to offer on their property and get off-market deals that they wouldn't be able to find that are not for sale. So that's what my app does. They subscribe to it and they also pay to send direct mail marketing or text messaging or cold call the owners with the real estate data that we provide. And we serve, we've got like in the last month, 15,000 people who have like actively used our app to do that activity.
Oh, that's incredible. So I bet you have a pretty good idea about how the market is evolving and things, because I feel like the market has been really hot for a long time. And then with the economic pullback and interest rates going up to buy properties, what does that look like for the market and how do you feel about what the next 18 months looks like?
Yeah, so in the last few months, I mean, at the beginning of the year, people were still experiencing a lot of appreciation. And now that's pulled back, but sellers actually still think their house is worth a lot. So there's a gap between what investors think and know that they can pay for a property versus what the actual property owner thinks that it's worth. So during that time, you still have to do deals and people are still doing deals, but instead of just buying them outright, they might be using strategies like creative financing to take over somebody's mortgage payment instead of actually outright buying the property. So that's one example of something that I've seen with the shift in the market that's occurred this year.
Yeah. For you, what do you think will be the most interesting things that will sort of like be occurring? Because it's like with every economic pullback, a lot of times like big inefficient companies lose and it's like new things propagate. What will you think be the winners in the next couple of years? Or what are the things you're
I think as it pertains to real estate investors and people who do deals actively for their income is to have some type of cash reserves, because the greatest wealth is often created on purchases made in a downturn. So, and also if there's some unknowns, that cash is going to take you through that uncertain period of time while you're taking time to adjust, right? May have a few less deals for a little bit. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just making sure you've gotten yourself a good enough cash cushion to support your operations through a season of unknown.
Yeah. How do you feel that this economic pullback might be different than what we saw in 2008?
I do think this economic pullback will be different than the one we saw in 2008. First of all, I was pretty young. I'm 33. So in 2008, I was not paying attention. I was in high school, but I did listen to a few lectures by a guy named Robert Norris, who studied many different recessions. And a few things that he told me, and I really appreciated hearing, was that in 2008, you guys saw The Big Short, the movie, where the people in the movie have 4, 5, 6, 7 houses, and they're just making cash. They don't even have a W-2 income, and all those were adjustable rate. So they're giving out mortgages without checking. So that's not happened this year. You know, this time around, that's not happened. People weren't allowed to have all these houses and all these adjustable rate mortgages that were ready to balloon, and then obviously they couldn't pay it, so they were foreclosed upon. So one, we're not going to have as many foreclosures because the lending rules have been more strict. And then two, there's been hedge funds active in the market where back in 2008, there were not hedge funds active in the market at the same levels that we've seen them buying up single family homes in recent years. So if there are homes in foreclosure, I really think like the CEO of the bank and Open Door or whatever these hedge funds are, they're going to be actually just buying the properties directly through that type of relationship. So it's not going to be something like the banks have all these properties on these books. So like if you're an investor looking for foreclosures in the upcoming recession, I just don't think you'll really see those.
Okay, that's good. So tell me a little bit about like how you created your company and what kind of you're thinking about for growth and stuff next.
Yeah. Well, I created my company in 2017 after I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The book got me really inspired, but I didn't know what to do next. So I went to a real estate investor meetup and they said, you need to find these houses that look run down and you need to send them postcards to ask if they want an offer on their house. And I struggled with the follow-up of doing that and felt that I missed out on what could have been a really awesome first deal because I had it on a piece of paper, but I didn't follow up. So I used my computer skills that I had at the time to make a quick widget on my phone where I could pin the house. It would tell me who owns it and send a postcard right there on the spot. So I could just keep driving and looking for homes. And we got a lot of growth. It was all word of mouth. It started with a buddy who wanted to use it. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll put it on the App Store. And then word kind of spread and other people started downloading it. And so it grew to a much bigger thing than I ever expected. I didn't even mean for it to be a company, but right product fit, right time. And so we've come to this point now where we're 5 years in and we've never had a marketing team. So focusing on marketing is going to be where we'll be able to grow because I think that's really low hanging fruit. And so we've started hiring and building that marketing team so that we can keep growing, focus on optimizing sign up funnels. But also for the existing members that we have, we've added tools like comps. You get all the MLS data with daily updates and the MLS pictures, so you can comp your properties based on what it actually looks like.
Kind of like a product.
You could pull lead lists, so it does more than just the original thing that it does. So that's another way that we've been growing too, is to think about what are the tabs open right next to Deal Machine, and how can we build that in a Deal Machine so it's a smoother transition instead of moving data between these different tools that investors use.
Okay, that's cool. So it sounds like you're just going to keep on growing into this market.
Yeah,
and maybe
absolutely.
If there is a bit of an economic pullback, that might actually be really great for you because there'll be more people needing to offload properties. So there's still going to be churn as money moves from people that have cash reserves to people that need cash now. That seems
I would agree with that. And I would expect that because at the beginning of the year, the average days on market in some places was 4 days. So no matter what house you had, you could get rid of it if you needed to quickly. But now in my own neighborhood in Indianapolis, it's grown to over 82 days last time I checked. And you just can't get rid of a house as quickly as you could before. So if there's distress and you can't get rid of your house quickly with the traditional means, investors are needed to be able to make those quick cash offers for people. So I'm really excited that a lot of our members will have some great buying opportunities throughout this time right now and in the future.
Wow. I know we had talked a little bit earlier about the emotional difference between what people think their assets worth versus what the market's willing to pay for it. In your experience, like, what do you think that will look like as people sort of like come to the realization that they might not get what they feel that they deserve for their house? Like, do you think that'll take kind of a couple months, or what do you think that sort of transition will look like as people sell?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we've been in the gap for a couple of months already where I think there's been differences between what people expect and what the house is actually worth. I'm very analytical. I think that you're very analytical as well, Tiana. And one thing that really puts my skeptic alert on is when some salesman tries to show me data that he's put together himself to make his point that he wants to make. So you can't do that. If you're trying to offer on somebody's property, you've got to resist the urge to show them the data. But instead, I think a better approach would be to ask questions and say, and maybe they'll end up at the right place. You could say, like, what have you been hearing on the news about the real estate market? What have you been hearing about interest rates? What have you been hearing from your friends about foreclosures? Are they going up or down? And so you could ask those types of questions, and then there's a possibility maybe they arrive at the conclusion that you want them to. But as much as I really want to, showing people the data and people showing me data doesn't make me feel like I want to believe them. And so I think that the question route is the better way to deal with those sellers when you feel like there's a gap.
Yeah, that makes sense. As I've been doing research about the industry, so I'm looking at a PropTech investment, and I'm trying to figure out basically like how I think like because it's like, I think overall from my perspective, software as a service, the numbers look good. There seems like there's still growth in it, and it has a potential, like, because they offer a cheaper solution that is innovative, that people, as they're trying to figure out how to cut costs, that they'll end up being a winner in the market. But I'm also thinking about it from the other sort of perspective of like, their core customers are real estate agents. And, when I experienced, because I got my first big girl job during 2007, and it was like it was a bloodbath. Everybody in the industry got the teeth kicked out of them. And I remember that summer, like everybody I knew ended up getting into other industries because the whole market was sort of like wiped out, and very few people continued to work in the industry. So I'm just trying to figure out like if that's going to be what this looks like, where we'll end up losing a ton of potential customers for this client or for this company, and that this would just be poor market timing for the investment. So that's sort of like what I'm trying to gauge is that piece around the market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I haven't really lived through a recession or a pullback or anything like that. But based on what I've understood is like the first domino of some type of recession has fallen, and that's whenever affordability dips below a certain level. Affordability is just percentage that measures how many of the home shoppers can afford how many of the properties. And I think that fell to about 17%. So that's like one of the first dominoes whenever, before the 2008, 2-year thing kind of started unraveling. Again, I just don't think it's going to be as big of a deal there. And if you subscribe to Ray Dalio, he's somebody I look up to. He's got a model that says, there's 10-year cycles and 100-year cycles. And we're at the end of a cycle, I think, in the short term, because we're 12 years into this bull market. So I think you can predict prices are going to go down, but what happens after a cycle starts over is then it just goes up for 5, 7 years, 10 years. I don't know if I have the right answer. There's just more context in that deal than I could possibly have, but those are some things that I used to think about stuff like that and how the market works.
Well, your input is still very valuable, and that's good. One of the other things I've been looking at it too is just checking real estate prices, and there's plenty of tools on the internet so you can see how the prices have adjusted. And even for the my local home market of Austin, what I was seeing was that 40% of the houses on the market are seeing a price pullback, which is really surprising, because we've had, I think, even from like the mega trend point, like even during economic pullbacks, that actually creates people wanting to move and change as they're looking for new work, as they're trying to figure out how to make their lives work. That creates churn, and that cities that have positive economic pieces like new jobs and things like that, people are going to move to those places. And Austin is positioned well. We've had a lot of large companies come here. We have really favorable business taxes and stuff like that have incentivized that. And then also from the employment perspective for companies, employing people in Texas is a lot cheaper, a lot less liability than places like New York or California. So I think like this market specifically will be not as affected, but since this is sort of like you know, like Dill Machine, it's going to be a nationwide product. It'll be interesting to see how that is affected.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with Austin specifically, I mean, people are still moving here, so that's like its own factor that's separate from like the recession or that might be happening. So yeah, I mean, if it's a nationwide product, that I think that smooths out what's going to happen in terms of Phoenix and San Diego are typically the early indicators of what happens around the rest of the country, but if you look at like in 2008, the biggest losses were in California, but markets like Indianapolis, they really kind of stayed steady like a bond. They didn't have a huge loss or anything like that. So those are two things that I also consider when I'm looking at the market.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And they're not making more real estate. They're
not making more real estate. That's true.
Yeah. Well, thank you. How about one more question, and I'll let you get back to your weekend.
Okay, I'm ready.
What's the favorite book that you've read in the last year?
In the last year, I read The Ultimate Sales Machine twice. That book was just filled with stuff I was able to think about as I was building a marketing team. And I thought it was one of the best books. I've read 10 books so far this year. And that was one of the best. And my team is so sick of me quoting it. They make jokes now about me quoting this book and laugh as soon as I start by saying, well, I read, this book, guys. But I think they've really appreciated it. We've definitely had, it's made me happier to read instead of scrolling Instagram in my free time before I go to bed or when I first wake up. And also it's just given me a lot of energy because I have ideas that I'm excited to try. And it's been a new habit for me this year that I'm really enjoying and looking forward to continuing.
Nice. Well, thank you for your recommendation. I'll give that one a go. And thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks, Tiana. Good luck with the investment.
Thank you guys so much for watching our first episode of URSEAT. We were able to evaluate our first company, a software as a service provider in the real estate industry. We are also able to interview an industry expert who's built a successful company in this space. If you'd like to learn more about investing in early stage companies, please join our community and subscribe to this channel. And I'll be putting out new content soon. Please send me feedback. I'd love to hear from you.